It lasted 20 years, a war that divided a nation, devastated a country, and changed the way the world viewed power, politics, and people. The Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. To some, it was a fight against communism. To others, it was a war of independence. But to everyone who lived through it, it was hell. Vietnam had long been a land of struggle, occupied by the French, then the Japanese during World War II. The Vietnamese had resisted colonial rule for decades. In 1954, after the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, the Viet Minh, communist-led forces under Ho Chi Minh, defeated the French. At the Geneva Conference, Vietnam was temporarily divided. North Vietnam under Ho Chi Minh, communist; South Vietnam under Ngo Dinh Diem, anti-communist, backed by the United States. The idea was to hold national elections, but they never came. Instead came war. The U.S., fearing the domino theory that communism would spread across Southeast Asia, began sending military advisors to South Vietnam. By 1964, everything changed. After the controversial Gulf of Tonkin incident, where U.S. ships were allegedly attacked by North Vietnamese patrol boats, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, giving President Lyndon B. Johnson a blank check for war. America committed fully. By 1968, more than 500,000 U.S. troops were on Vietnamese soil. This was no ordinary war. The Viet Cong, communist guerrilla fighters in the South, blended into the population. The U.S. and South Vietnamese forces used overwhelming firepower, airstrikes, napalm, search and destroy missions, but couldn't see their enemy. The jungles became a trap. The people, uncertain. Every village could be a battlefield. Every civilian could be a fighter. The U.S. dropped more bombs on Vietnam than in all of World War II combined. Agent Orange, a defoliant, scarred the land and its people for generations. In 1968, during the Tet holiday, the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong launched a massive surprise attack on over 100 cities across South Vietnam, including the U.S. Embassy in Saigon. Militarily, the U.S. repelled the assault, but psychologically, Tet was a turning point. Americans watched the carnage on their televisions and began to ask, why are we still there? Support at home collapsed. The anti-war movement grew louder. Trust in the government cracked. President Richard Nixon, elected in 1968, promised to end the war. He introduced Vietnamization, pulling out U.S. troops while increasing support for South Vietnamese forces. But secretly, the war expanded. The U.S. began bombing Cambodia and Laos to disrupt North Vietnamese supply lines, the Ho Chi Minh Trail. In 1970, the invasion of Cambodia sparked massive protests in the U.S. At Kent State University, National Guard troops opened fire on students. 4 were killed. The war had come home. By 1973, after intense negotiations and global pressure, a ceasefire was signed in Paris. The U.S. withdrew, but peace was fragile. In 1975, the North launched a final offensive. South Vietnamese defenses collapsed. On April 30, 1975, tanks rolled into Saigon. The American embassy was evacuated by helicopter in chaotic scenes. Vietnam was united under communist rule. The Vietnam War left deep scars. Over 3 million Vietnamese dead, more than 58,000 American soldiers killed, millions more wounded, missing, or traumatized. Laos and Cambodia destabilized, paving the way for the Khmer Rouge genocide. In the U.S., confidence in government crumbled. Veterans returned to a divided, unwelcoming nation. The war raised moral questions that still echo. What is a just war? Can you win the hearts of people with bombs? How do you measure victory? The Vietnam War wasn't just a geopolitical struggle. It was a battle of ideologies, of nations, of people, and of memory. It taught us that military might cannot defeat nationalism. That truth is the first casualty of war, and that healing takes longer than fighting. This was the Vietnam War, a war that changed America, Vietnam, and the world forever.